welcome to the Step Up Executive Group. I'm very happy to be here and to be chatting with you ladies today and to be sharing this information with you. I will talk about a few things. Who am I? Who is ProVeg? 5 reasons to be ProVeg, the health benefits, which is the focus of this talk, vegan versus whole food plant-based, how to balance your plate, and then the veggie challenge. So firstly, who am I? My name is Dr. Nanine Wemer. I studied medicine and I was working at Tygerberg right down the road. And during the time that I was studying, and from before when I was a young child, I had some chronic symptoms of, like, I had very severe eczema. And when I went to the doctors, all that I was given for treatment was cortisone. And if anybody has used cortisone, you'd know that it suppresses your immune system. And you also can't use it for a long time because it has a lot of side effects. So that left me feeling really dissatisfied, and I tried so many different things. I was actually just willing to try anything. So I tried lots of diets. I've tried calorie counting. I've tried banting. And then I started learning about the plant-based diet, which was very different from the previous diet. It wasn't a restrictive diet. It was more about getting in more healing foods and how the foods can help your body to heal and how nature is so intricately woven through the healing process. So I started studying about nutrition while I was still studying medicine, and then I graduated. I went to go work in KZN, and my symptoms just got worse and worse from the high stress environment and from the lack of sleep. So I decided to stop working and take a break. And when I did that, a lot of my symptoms improved, even though the plant-based diet really did help me, because this is a holistic approach and the plant-based diet is so important. There's also other factors that you need to think about, like stress, that is linked to your symptoms. So when I stopped working, most of my symptoms disappeared, but just to show you that it's about a holistic approach. It's about treating stress, it's about managing what you consume, whether it's your food or the stuff that you're reading or who you're speaking to. It's all linked, and this is a very powerful piece of the puzzle. So I work for an international food awareness organization now. It's a non-profit, and there are offices throughout the world. I'm working with a very small team here in South Africa, and in Asia there's an office in China, and also now in India, all over Europe, and also in the States. And the mission of the organization is to reduce the global consumption of animals by 50% by 2040. And we strive for a world where everyone chooses delicious, healthy food that is good for all humans, animals, and the planet. And so we do this in a few ways. We do awareness campaigns, and that's how we first started talking. We did a campaign for World Plant Milk Day, and that's why we got lots of different plant milk options. We do community building, corporate engagement, where we try and get people to manufacture more plant-based products for plant-based innovation in the food space. We try and get people who are in canteens to serve more plant-based options, and for it to be really pushed by the wellness corporate environment, and then also political outreach when it comes to food injustice, and also right now in the medical scene. And so before I go on to why we do what we do, there's this quote from Albert Einstein, who was a genius, who said that nothing will benefit health or increase the chances of survival on Earth as the evolution to a vegetarian diet. And so when we talk about why we do what we do, it's important to understand that there's 5 different reasons. And when you look at the 5 different reasons independent from one another, it might not be big enough of a reason for you to shift or to think differently. But when you look at them all together, you realize that this really is a multi-problem solution. And there's a lot of information here that is really important for us and for the sustainability of the planet. So the first pro is pro-animals, and animal agriculture subjects billions of animals to a lot of physical and emotional suffering, and these sentient and intelligent beings are denied of their most basic needs, enduring extreme confinement, squalid conditions, poor health, mutilation, and slaughter. And so 70 billion land animals are killed per year for food consumption, and that is resulting in 70% of the species extinction. And this is where a lot of people enter being vegan or plant-based because they've watched a lot of horror movies where they just see terrible things happening. Personally, I've never watched a movie like that because it's very traumatic, but this is a really big reason for us to talk about a plant-based diet, is that we don't see how they are treating the animals that are to become our food. They just treat them like they are to become our food, and that they are like products. So they don't treat them like sentient beings that have feelings or deserve respect. And then the second reason is pro-justice. So when we are feeding plants to the animals that we're going to eat, we're basically rising the costs of basic foods in developing countries, and that contributes to world hunger and food injustice. So there's not enough food for the humans because we're sending a lot of the food away to be eaten by the animals that we're going to eat. And so 35% of the harvest goes to animals, 75% of the soy harvest goes to animals, and this takes up 30% of the water. And then pro-environment. So animal agriculture is a major cause of some of the world's most urgent environmental problems, including climate change. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining this because this was really enlightening for me to receive this information. It's very powerful reason for us to care and learn more. So I have a few diagrams and I'm just going to run through them. When we're talking about the environmental impact that something has on the environment, we can look at greenhouse gases, which are the gases that are emitted, causing the warmth to stay inside the planet. We can look at how we're using our land, how we're using our water, and then how much we are polluting the environment, and also biodiversity. So going from the back now, 94% of all of the animals are animals that we eat for livestock. So that means that we've lost 94% of the biodiversity, and only 6% are now wild animals. And agriculture contributes to 78% of the pollution of the environment, and then it also takes up 70% of the global water supply. It takes up 50% of our land and contributes 25% to our greenhouse gases. So agriculture is a really big part of our lives because we all have to eat 3 times a day, or more or less depending on what you need. And it's very important for us to just look at, like, we can't just remove agriculture from this because we need food, but to really understand like how much of the planet is dedicated to creating food. Yeah. And then I'll run through a few things like the global land use. So if I go from the top down, on the Earth's surface, there's 29% of land, the rest is water. Of that, only 71% is land that we can use because the rest is like glaciers or just total barren land. Of the land that we can live on, we use half of that land to create food. And of that land that we are using, 77% is livestock, 23% is crops, but by far majority of our protein and our calories come from plants. So there's a complete maldistribution here where we're getting too little for 77% of what we're using. And then this is quite a powerful graph about the greenhouse gases. If you go to the top, how this works is they measure kilograms of carbon dioxide that gets emitted into the environment. So This is per 100 grams of protein. If you go from the top, beef, lamb, prawns, beef or dairy, cheese, milk, pig, fish, poultry, eggs. And then from there down, you see the plant-based sources. And as you can see, the grains, tofu, it's a tiny, tiny little fraction of what is produced per 100 grams of protein of beef, which is producing a lot of greenhouse gases. And then where we first started talking was about the milk. And I was talking a lot about the environmental impact of the milk. And so you can see on the one on the left, the one on the far left is cow's milk. And then it's compared to soya, almond, oat, and rice milk. The different types of milks that are from plant-based sources, you basically soak the plants and then you compress and get the water out. And you can flavor it in many different ways, but when I was doing this campaign, the intention was to just reveal how many options there are. So you can see this is just a very small amount of options that are on the table. We at our organization actually collected 90 different milks that are available in South Africa from plant-based sources. So they range from affordable to very expensive. And the ones that I have brought today is I've brought a lot of Good Hope milk, and that is the most affordable option made from soy milk. And if you look at the water, the top picture is cow's milk, which requires 628 liters of water to produce 1 liter of cow's milk. And right at the bottom is 28 liters for 1 liter of soy milk. So for every 1 liter, you're saving 600 liters of water, which is just an incredible number. And so the fourth out of the 5 pros is Pro Taste, where we really try and show that this can be a really tasty way to eat your food. There's still like kind of these myths that vegetables are gross and that vegan food tastes like cardboard, and it's just not true anymore. There's so much innovation, so many people using different flavors, and there's so many tasty options. Actually, this photo that's up here now was what we did for Braai Day, and all of the meat that you see is vegan. So there's absolutely no animal products on the plate, and all of this is available in South Africa. And then to get to what we're really talking about today, which is ProHealth. And the research shows that consuming animals increases the risk of heart disease, strokes, diabetes, obesity, and cancer. It's also mostly responsible for cases of food poisoning. And all of these epidemics are as a result of eating animals. For example, the coronavirus was from a bat, and the swine flu was from a pig. The influenza is from birds. And so the wild animals that we are eating are becoming more and more threatened, and they can cause these pandemics. And another big topic is antibiotic resistance. So when they're keeping the animals, 70% of antibiotics go to the animals in the world, go to the animals. And those that are treating the animals in that way don't have the same mindset as the doctors do. The doctors are very cautious with how they prescribe antibiotics, sometimes. But they should be, because as soon as the antibiotics become resistant, which is what is happening, we won't be able to treat any of our bacterial infections anymore, which is really frightening. So the animal agriculture industry is using 70% of the antibiotics, which is very dangerous. And then, so to go on to the humans, I just have a quick question for everybody. If you can just put up your hand if either you or somebody that you know in your family has been diagnosed with either type 2 diabetes, hypertension, or arthritis. So those are very, very common things to get diagnosed with in South Africa. And these are, what I'm going to talk about is those specific conditions and how you can even reverse those conditions with a plant-based diet. And there is so much evidence to prove that. So firstly, type 2 diabetes is known to be a condition that a plant-based diet can prevent, manage, and reverse completely. And the reason why is because animal products have a lot of fat in them, and it blocks the insulin from working properly. So as soon as you really remove all of that out of your diet, in the way that plants actually have absolutely no cholesterol in them, and there's also a lot of fiber in your diet, you can actually reverse your diabetes and become more sensitive to natural sources of sugar instead of processed forms of sugar. So to look at the research, in 2003, they saw that a plant-based diet controlled blood sugar 3 times more effectively than traditional diabetes diet that limited calories and carbohydrates. So that's not in the plant-based diet. You don't have to limit your calories, you don't have to limit your carbohydrates. And within weeks on a plant-based diet, participants saw dramatic health improvements. They lost weight, insulin sensitivity improved, HbA1c levels dropped, and in some cases, you would never know they had the disease to begin with. So these studies are being done all over the world. A lot of it is being done in America, and we're busy trying to get the studies rolling in South Africa so that we can really show that it works in the South African population. And then for hypertension, they did some studies where they showed that those who follow a plant-based diet typically have lower blood pressure than those who consume animal products. And in 2014, they looked at all of the research that had ever been done about people's diets and hypertension. And there were 39 studies, and they found that all across, when you compare those who ate meat to the vegetarians had lower blood pressure. And that's incredible. Like, there's so many people in this country that have high blood pressure, and they just simply don't get told this information. So as a doctor that was working in clinics for a really long time, hypertension, you come in, you measure your blood pressure, you either get more pills or your pills go down. But the chances of your pills actually going down instead of going up is really rare, because we're not taking the proactive steps that helps to clean our blood and relieve that pressure. And that's because the plants have a lot of those key minerals that we need, like potassium, that dilates our blood vessels. And so for weight loss, in America, they tested a plant-based diet in a group of 64 women. And at the start of the study, all of the women were moderately or severely overweight. And they only had to follow 2 rules. Cut out all animal products and keep your oils to a minimum. And all of them lost about 1 pound per week without calorie counting or exercise. And after 2 years, they had maintained the weight loss. So there's a lot of talk between different diets, like specifically a keto diet and say a plant-based diet, but there is a lot of evidence to show that plant-based diet helps weight loss. Almost everybody I know has lost a dramatic amount of weight when they go completely plant-based. And then lastly, arthritis. So they surveyed more than 1,000 people who have arthritis, and it showed that red meat, sugar, fat, salt, caffeine, and nightshades commonly worsen the condition, and also dairy. And then a study found that a high-fiber diet, like the plant-based diet, reduces the risk of knee osteoarthritis by 61%. And I know that that is very valuable, because the amount of people that I've seen in the clinics that had osteoarthritis in their knee, and they're just waiting and waiting and waiting for that knee replacement for years and years, and they never get told this information. So they're not empowered to really make the difference in their life that they're capable of making, instead of just waiting and waiting and waiting. So what is vegan? So if somebody says to you that they're a vegan, they don't consume any animal products. They're very conscious about the animals. They don't eat meat, fish, dairy, eggs, honey or other bee products, animal-based ingredients like whey or gelatin, leather, wool or fur, or any products tested on animals. So that is, by definition, what a vegan is. And what I want to say with this is that things like Oreos and chips like crisps and slap chips and a lot of these treats that you see, they don't have any animal products in them. So they're also vegan. So you can also be an unhealthy vegan if you're choosing to always eat like refined sugars and refined carbohydrates, and you're just eating a lot of bread with a lot of sugar on top. You can still be vegan and be unhealthy. And so what I really want to get across is these words, whole food, plant-based. And if you look at any of the research, they don't talk about vegan, they talk about whole food, plant-based, because it's basically a healthy vegan diet. So it's a plant-based diet that has no unrefined or unprocessed foods. So it's like the fruit or the vegetable hasn't been broken down and changed a million times. You're eating it as it is. And that includes whole plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes, nuts, and seeds. It doesn't include meat, fish, dairy, eggs, refined white flours and grains, refined sugars, and processed oils. And so before I talk about how we're going to structure this plate, I got this quote from Genesis 1 verse 29, and God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, and you shall have them for food." And so I'm going to show how to balance your plate, what you should be eating, so that you're having all of your nutrients and you're really going to be empowered to be able to heal your body every time you choose to create your plate 3 times a day. So half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables, and that includes tomatoes, cabbage, beetroot, pumpkin, garlic, olives, broccoli, apples, fruits, anything that is a whole fruit and vegetable. Obviously, you can cook it. You don't have to have it raw, but that includes potatoes, and these foods are usually quite colorful, and the more colorful your foods, like green foods, are very healing. Orange or red or yellow, they contain specific nutrients that make them that color that is very good for your body. And we're supposed to see that color and think, yes, like that's the healthy food. So they also have a lot of water in them and a lot of fiber. And then a quarter of your plate should be whole grain foods. So that's at the top where you see the bread roll. And that includes things like oats, rye, spelt, wheat, barley, millet, and rice. And then other pseudo cereals such as quinoa, amaranth, and buckwheat. And this is your source of carbohydrates and also your source of fiber. So you can be eating something like oats in the morning, and then you can have rice in the afternoon with your lunch and rice with your dinner, or whatever you're used to cooking. And the other quarter is plant proteins. And that includes things like lentils, peas, beans, soybeans, and chickpeas. So you should be pairing like your rice with lentils, and you can mix it together, and then you have all the protein that you could possibly get. It contains all your essential proteins. So to have something like oats and rice, and then combine it with beans. If you are following a plant-based diet, you should be eating beans and chickpeas and lentils all the time. It'll make you so full, and it really regulates your gut because it's high in fiber, and it fills you up as well. So you can eat like a whole plate of lentils and you'll be really full, and you can do that every day. Like I said, there's no calorie counting and there's no restricting on a plant-based diet. A lot of people will like triple their intake of food when they go on a plant-based diet, and they'll still lose weight. It's absolutely crazy to watch. So vegan meat alternatives such as tofu, vegan burgers, and schnitzel are available. And the alternatives to milk are also really high in protein usually, because the biggest thing is people come to you and say, where do you get your protein? So all of these alternatives are like designed to be high in protein, to show you like, look, there's so much protein in here. And if you look at this picture and you compare the same amount of beef to beans, has the same amount of protein. And that is like, people will still continuously ask you, where do you get your protein? And I promise you, beans, chickpeas, legumes, nuts, seeds, tofu, soya milk has the same amount of protein as cow's milk. All of these are so high in protein, I promise you, you're taking in more than you would take in if you were eating meat. And beef doesn't have any fiber, which means the fiber basically carries it through your gut. So you'll find like you can get a little bit constipated if you're just eating meat the whole time. Beans have as you can see, 15 grams of fiber. They're really high in fiber. They have more iron, calcium, magnesium, and zero cholesterol. So no plants contain cholesterol. You will be taking in no cholesterol when you eat something that's plant-based. And it also costs a fraction of the price to buy 100 grams of beans versus 100 grams of beef. I invite you to just look at that in the shops, because a lot of times people will think that eating vegan is really expensive. And if you get down to the basics of whole food and your vegetables and your fruit, beans, chickpeas, legumes, rice, and you weigh that up against the meat, you will notice when you actually do it that you're saving money. And I have a lot of friends now who are transitioning, and the whole time they said it's too expensive, but it's because they were going out buying fancy milk, and they were going out buying fancy alternatives, and you really don't need to do that, because we're eating as natural as possible, and it should be available everywhere. And then also the very big difference in water that it takes. And then also the healthy oils and nuts, you can see is right in the middle. To have that in moderation, so to not be frying all of your foods too much. Where you can, put the oil on raw on top. You don't need to cook it in too much oil if you really want some. And then this guideline also recommends you drink 2 liters of water a day. So I know this is a lot of information, and it's not always easy to go out and decide how you're going to start doing this. So there is a tool that we have that has right now over 280,000 participants, and it's a free ProVeg Veggie Challenge. And you sign up online and you pick what you want to do. So you say, I want to eat less meat, or I want to eat vegetarian, or I want to eat vegan. So you really don't have to be cutting meat out completely from your diet. If you think about our mission, which is to reduce it by 50%, if you're eating meat 4 times a day and you eat it 2 times a day by this challenge that can help you, or just in general, then we've already succeeded. So we're happy just to cut it down 50%. And so if you sign up here online, you just put your name and your email, and you get an email for 30 days that kind of coaches you, gives you all this information that I'm talking about, and it also gives you over 100 free recipes. And you can contact the coach at any time if you have questions. And it also gives you these great like infographics of how you're doing. So if you shift your regular diet to 30 days of vegan, you can save 3 whole animals, 62.5 kilograms of CO2, nearly 40,000 liters of water, and 65 meters squared of land. So to be able to keep up with that and to recognize how this works is really incredible. And then we've also just released the app. So if you want to download it on your phone, you just type in Veggie Challenge. And the app is actually very cool because it gives you all the information. Like you can see, it's like, oh, on day 1, if you've done it for 1 day, you've saved this much. And it has so many, like hundreds of recipes. And you can schedule your meals, and you can also build grocery lists. So it's very helpful, especially if you're unsure what to be cooking. And then if this really isn't for you right now, and maybe it comes back a couple months later and you're thinking about it again, every January there is a movement called Veganuri, where worldwide people sign up to eat vegan for a month or just reduce their animal consumption. And we do big campaigns around this, and it's a great way to start the year, especially if you want to achieve your health goals. And yeah, so thanks very much for listening to me. I know it's a lot of information, but it's really important, and I really feel like this is a very key component to how we're going to take care of our future. for the planet, and I'm hoping that one day we will just be getting, if you ever end up in the hospital, you'll just be getting plants and they'll be helping to heal you. So I'll just leave this up here if you want to follow the link and sign up for the challenge. And then other than that, I'm done. And we also have a lot of, we've prepared some burgers. So what I was given some fries. Fries is a meat replacement, and it's not exactly whole food, but it still has 0 cholesterol. And if you look at the studies, people who eat those meat replacements actually do better than people that eat meat. So it's a little bit processed, but it's also available in all the shops, like completely nationwide. It's a bright green box. If you go into the frozen section, you'll see there's so many different options. So if you're ever interested in trying, we have cooked up the chicken schnitzels in a burger, but there are so many options. So I hope you guys give it a try. Okay, thank you. Thank you.